As of today, I've been going substantially island that is captured imaginations for centuries. Its beauty as a tropical paradise is never discovered attention whether it is the optimal violent uncontacted tribes across the island home. Isation the Sentinelese continue to live a hunter-gatherer lifestyle. They fiercely protect their homeland from outsiders, and their language, culture, and customs remain almost entirely unknown. Today, we will delve deep into the history of encounters with the Sentinelese, what we know about their way of life, and discuss the ethical and philosophical problems presented to us. Without further ado, let us shed light on the mysteries that shroud this hidden jewel of the Andaman archipelago. North Sentinel Island has an area of about 60 square kilometers, or 23 square miles, and is relatively square in shape. It lies around 40 kilometers, or 22 miles from the Andaman Islands. These islands are home to various indigenous and agreed-to peoples such as the Andamanese, the Engin, the Jarawat. You watched my last video. You would know that these people are the direct descendants of some of the first modern humans sent to Southeast Asia. Their ancestors have likely been on these islands for over 40,000 years. Though improving, this is likely also the case for North Sentinel Island. These people have been here far longer than anything resembling civilization was developed, but in this time, the world around them has of course gone through many changes. Nearby Anime Islands have been devastated by colonization efforts, while N Sentinel was more or less left to themselves. Though considered largely uncontacted, the island does have a detailed history of contact throughout the past centuries. First of all, the Sentinelese have probably interacted with neighboring tribes in the past hundreds or maybe thousands of years. Did you know that the neighboring tribes consider them hostile in the modern day? Though in the past this may have been different. Is Sophie let undocumented encounters, perhaps between slavers, pirates, where shipwrecks have occurred on North Sentinel Island deep into history. The Andaman Islands have been known for centuries, if not millennia. I made them cultures, or they were not documented until the 9th century and did not appear on maps until 1574. John Ritchie of the East India Company was the first person to formally describe the island in 1771, though all he said was that he saw the lights of fire on the island. The whole 96 years would pass before any mention of the island would be made. In 1867, an Indian ship named the in a boat was wrecked by a monsoon on a reef off N Sentinel Island. Over the 86 crew survived the devastating event and made it to the beach safely. For 2 entire days the crew survived on the beach, unaware of the hostile islanders, and on the morning of the 3rd day they attacked. The captain of the Nouveau was quoted saying their attacks with arrows appeared to be tipped with iron. Fortunately, all of the crew was able to retreat to the ship unharmed. They were able to fend off the Sentinelese from their wooden walls with just sticks and stones. Soon after, the Royal Navy arrived and rescued the castaways. It is interesting to mention that even in 1771, the Sentinelese oil seemed to have had arrows tipped with iron, as may suggest other unknown shipwrecks or perhaps contact with the outside world. Due to the expansion of British India, Andaman Islands, including N Sentinel Island, was declared part of Britain's colonial holdings. However, this did not affect the island for nearly another century. Human islands, on the other hand, were not as lucky. The British brought devastating disease and colonization in the mid to late 1800s. From 50% of the Andamanese would die due to disease and conflict over the following years. Prison labor groups were forced to cut down the jungle and were occasionally attacked by the natives, who despised them for obvious reasons. The tension heightened until coming to a fever pitch at the Battle of Aberdeen. Around 1500 islanders attacked the prison labor colony at Aberdeen. The British already had warned that the attack was coming, and the call was soon a British schooner which set offshore the devastating fire in Ankeny fairly quickly, something islanders running with their bows and spears. English and also used this laborers. Their homes were built and many enemies, so the parish due to disease and poor nutrition. After a few engagements with other groups from the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, they were essentially fully controlled by the British, that is, except for North Central. In late 1800s the British officer M.V. Portland was put in charge of the Andaman Islands. Portman was a strange figure with a peculiar interesting Andamanese men. He took many photos of these men in various mock Greek ***************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************** compositions. He also had a keen interest in measuring the penises of the Andamanese. Perhaps his strange obsessions compelled him to attempt to visit to the still unspoiled Sentinel Island. Prior to his visit, he mentioned an instance where one of his millions of people on the shore of North Central. He did not land but saw 10 men on the beach who were naked, with long hair, and were shooting fish with boats. In Heroes, he wrote, "Are there any minis islanders had? The Sentinelese were not friendly to them because of an inter-island conflict many years ago." This account also tells us that the Sentinel is very likely had a conflict with at least some Andamanese in the recent past. This encounter and Mr. Portman's observations that the Sentinelese were different from nearby island cultures inspired his curiosity. There is a tribe on North Sentinel Island about which very little is known, though it is suspected to be quite a recent offshoot from the Little Andaman people, if indeed all communication between the two islands has actually ceased. In January of 1880, he finally decided to pay the island to visit with a large team of British, Indian and Burmese convicts, as well as some Andamanese trackers. In his first trip, while he was able to find where abandoned villages, which he then took photos of his trackers as if they lived there, a second trip just a few days later would be disastrous when his approach, he says, not least, which quickly retreated into the forest, only seldom coming. Portland's men continued their trek across the island until they came across the family in a thick forest. He surprised me and quickly dropped his bow in a fight broke out. We don't know exactly how this fight played out, but we do know what Portman wrote in his journal. We got 3 unhurt and brought them on board. They kidnapped group of. For some reason this differs from his journal. Isn't taking the South Andaman Island, capital of Port Blair, in the interest of science. Upon reaching their first glimpse of civilization, they soon fell ill and the 2 adults died. The 4 children were taken back to their island with a number of gifts. It can be assumed that they are highly infectious diseases spread to the others. On the island and possibly killed many. After all was settled down, Portland wrote, "This expedition is not a success. We cannot be said to have done anything more than increase that general terror of an hostility to all comers.